A virgin woman had always dreamed of a life beyond the misery that surrounded her, but the limitations of her past kept her from seeing a way out. The millionaire owner of a financial empire appeared and offered her a lot of money, but under one condition: to submit to his control. But when she realized his game of manipulation, she decided she wouldn't be just another piece in his empire. If this story caught your attention, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. Stay tuned. The rain pounded mercilessly against the cracked windows of Lily Morgan's cramped apartment in South Boston. At 28, she had spent most of her life fighting against the gravitational pull of her circumstances. Tonight was no different. As she sat at her small kitchen table, surrounded by past-due bills illuminated by the harsh fluorescent light overhead. "Not enough," she whispered, tallying the numbers for the third time. Her second job as a bartender at the harbor's edge had helped, but between her mother's medical bills and the rent increase, she was drowning again. Lily glanced at the framed photograph on her refrigerator, herself at age 10 standing with her mother in front of their old apartment building. Back then, her mother's eyes still sparkled with possibility, before the factory closed, before the illness, before everything collapsed around them. She'd learned young that in a place like South Boston, dreams came with expiration dates. For women like her, from families like hers, opportunities were as scarce as winning lottery tickets. College had been a brief glimmer of hope, abandoned when her mother first fell ill. 7 years later, Lily had become well acquainted with the bitter taste of unfulfilled potential. Her phone vibrated against the table. Sarah, her boss at the upscale Beacon Hill restaurant where she worked as a hostess during the day. "I need you to work the Blackwood event tomorrow night," Sarah said without preamble. "Melissa called in sick, and you're the only one with enough experience." Lily hesitated. "I'm scheduled at the bar tomorrow night." "This pays triple," Sarah replied, "and Blackwood specifically requested our best staff. Everyone who's anyone in Boston will be there." The name Blackwood sent a shiver down Lily's spine. Even in her world, everyone knew of Ethan Blackwood, the 39-year-old investment mogul whose name graced buildings across the Boston skyline. The whispers about him ranged from awe to fear. He'd transformed a modest inheritance into a financial empire through methods that some called brilliant and others called ruthless. "I'll be there," Lily said, already calculating how many bills the extra money would cover. The next evening, Lily stood in the grand ballroom of the Blackwood Tower, a 60-story monument to wealth that dominated the Boston skyline. She wore the black dress and pearls that were the unofficial uniform of the catering staff, her chestnut hair swept into a neat bun. All around her, Boston's elite mingled in designer gowns and bespoke suits, the air perfumed with expensive fragrances and privilege. "Champagne to table 7 now," hissed the event coordinator, thrusting a tray into Lily's hands. "And remember, you're invisible unless spoken to." Lily navigated through the crowd, keeping her eyes lowered but alert. She'd learned the choreography of these events, how to slip between conversations, anticipate needs, and remain unnoticed. The wealthy preferred service that appeared magical, needs fulfilled without the uncomfortable reminder of the human performing the task. As she approached table 7, a deep laugh cut through the ambient noise of the gala. Despite herself, Lily looked up. Ethan Blackwood sat at the center of the table, commanding attention without effort. Dark hair with silver temples framed a face that seemed carved from ambition itself, strong jawline, penetrating gray eyes, and a smile that suggested he knew secrets about everyone in the room. He wore wealth like a second skin, his tailored tuxedo emphasizing broad shoulders and the confident posture of a man accustomed to being obeyed. Lily began placing champagne flutes around the table, her movements precise and practiced. When she reached Blackwood, his hand brushed against hers as he reached for his glass. "Thank you," he said, his voice a low rumble that stopped her mid-motion. The wealthy rarely acknowledged service staff. They certainly didn't thank them. Lily glanced up, meeting his gaze directly for the first time. "You're welcome, sir," she replied, professional but cool. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, perhaps, at her composed response. Most people, Around him either fawned or cowered. She did neither. "Your name?" he asked. "Lily Morgan," she answered, acutely aware of the curious glances from others at the table. "Lily," he repeated, as if testing how the name felt. "You don't usually work these events." It wasn't a question, but a statement of fact. Lily felt a flutter of unease. How would he know that? "I'm filling in, Mr. Blackwood," she said, maintaining her professional demeanor. His lips curved into a slight smile. "Well, I hope you'll fill in more often." The conversation at the table resumed, and Lily retreated, unsettled by the exchange. As the evening progressed, she felt his gaze following her across the room. Not predatory exactly, but assessing, as if she were a puzzle he was trying to solve. Near midnight, as the gala wound down, Lily was sorting glassware in a service area when a shadow fell across the table. "Ms. Morgan," Ethan Blackwood said, standing closer than propriety would dictate. "I hope I'm not interrupting." Lily straightened, maintaining a professional distance. "Not at all, Mr. Blackwood. Did you need something?" He studied her for a moment, his head tilted slightly. "You're different from the others who work these events. You carry yourself with dignity. It's refreshing." The compliment, if it was one, made Lily uncomfortable. "I'm just doing my job, sir." "I'd like to offer you a position," he said abruptly, "on my personal staff." Lily blinked, caught off guard. I have jobs already, Mr. Blackwood." "Whatever they pay, I'll triple it," he replied as if the matter were settled. "My assistant will contact you tomorrow with details." Before she could respond, he pressed a business card into her hand, his fingers lingering against her palm for a moment too long. "Consider it carefully, Ms. Morgan. Opportunities like this don't come along often for someone in your position." The words stung with their accuracy. People from South Boston didn't get opportunities like this, whatever this was. "What exactly would this position entail?" she asked, her voice steady despite her racing heart. His smile deepened, revealing a small dimple in his right cheek. "Let's call it a personal assistant role for now. Your responsibilities would evolve based on your capabilities." The ambiguity sent warning signals racing through Lily's mind, but the reality of her situation loomed larger. Her mother's medical bills, the impending eviction notice, her own deferred dreams. "I'll consider it," she said finally. "Excellent," he replied, his confidence suggesting he'd never doubted her answer. "I look forward to our partnership, Lily Morgan." As he walked away, Lily stared at the heavy cardstock in her hand. Embossed black letters on pristine white, Ethan Blackwood, CEO, with a private number handwritten on the back. Later that night, in her quiet apartment, Lily researched Ethan Blackwood more thoroughly. The articles painted a picture of a brilliant but ruthless businessman who had risen to power through a combination of strategic acquisitions and aggressive tactics. Companies that opposed him tended to collapse under mysterious circumstances. People who crossed him disappeared from the business world entirely. Yet he had a carefully cultivated public image: philanthropist, eligible bachelor, Boston's golden son. The contradiction made her uneasy. Her mother's labored breathing from the bedroom reminded Lily of the cost of pride in a world designed to break people like them. The eviction notice on the counter, the medical bills piled beside it, the constant exhaustion of working 2 jobs, all of it weighed on her as she stared at Blackwood's card. The man offered escape, but Lily couldn't shake the feeling that his help would come with invisible chains. Yet what choice did she really have? Dreams had expiration dates in South Boston, and hers had long since passed. With trembling fingers, she picked up her phone and dialed the number. 3 months later, Lily stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of Ethan Blackwood's Beacon Hill penthouse, watching the sun set over the Charles River. The glass felt cool against her fingertips, a stark contrast to the warmth that had flooded her life since accepting his offer. Her mother now received treatment at Boston's premier medical facility, where specialists offered hope instead of perfunctory sympathies. Lily had moved from their cramped South Boston apartment to a stylish condo in Back Bay, paid for by Blackwood Enterprises as part of her compensation package. Her wardrobe had transformed from functional to fashionable, her appearance now reflecting the circles in which she moved. Beautiful, isn't it? Ethan's voice came from behind her, followed by the soft clink of ice against crystal. He handed her a glass of scotch, the expensive kind he preferred, and stood beside her, close enough that she could smell his signature cologne. Yes, Lily agreed, taking the glass but not drinking. Sometimes it doesn't feel real. Ethan chuckled, the sound warm but controlled, like everything about him. That feeling fades. Eventually, you'll wonder how you lived any other way. Lily turned to study him. In the 3 months since she'd begun working as his executive personal assistant, she'd witnessed many facets of Ethan Blackwood. He could be charming, brilliant, and occasionally even kind. He could also be calculating, manipulative, and coldly efficient when handling problems. Her official duties included managing his personal schedule, coordinating with his household staff, and acting as his companion at events, where a date would be expected, but commitment would be implied. The role blurred professional and personal boundaries in ways that made Lily increasingly uncomfortable, even as she grew accustomed to the lifestyle it afforded. The Hendersons. "Gala is tomorrow night," Ethan said, sipping his scotch. Their daughter just announced her engagement to Senator Whitman's son. Quite the strategic alliance. Lily nodded, already mentally selecting appropriate attire. "I've confirmed our attendance. Black tie, arrival at 8. "Wear the blue dress," he said, his tone making it clear this wasn't a suggestion. "The one from Milan. It complements your eyes." "As you wish," Lily replied, the practiced phrase coming easily now. Ethan's gaze lingered on her face. "You've adapted remarkably well, Lily. Most people would have crumbled under the pressure of this transition." "I'm not most people," she said simply. A smile played at the corners of his mouth. "No, you're certainly not. That's why you're here." Here, in his inner circle where she'd learned more about the reality of Ethan Blackwood's empire than most would ever know. She'd seen the contracts designed to bankrupt competitors. She'd observed the subtle threats delivered with a smile. She'd witnessed how he systematically isolated those around him, making them dependent on his approval and generosity. She'd also begun to notice his careful interest in her. Not romantic, exactly. Ethan didn't seem capable of that kind of vulnerability. It was something more possessive, as if she were a particularly interesting acquisition he was still cataloguing. "Rebecca Campbell called again today," Lily said, changing the subject. Rebecca was the CEO of a tech startup that Ethan had been pressuring to sell to him for months. Ethan's expression hardened. "And?" "She's willing to meet, but not to sell. She thinks there's still a path to partnership that doesn't involve Blackwood Enterprises absorbing her company completely." He took her glass, setting it aside with his own. "She'll learn. They all do eventually." The casual confidence with which he dismissed Rebecca's resistance sent a chill through Lily. She'd seen what happened to those who challenged Ethan's will too forcefully. They didn't just lose businesses, they lost reputations, relationships, futures. "Perhaps," Lily said carefully, "a partnership could actually benefit both companies, her innovation combined with your resources." "I didn't ask for your strategic input, Lily," Ethan interrupted, his voice soft but edged with steel. "Rebecca Campbell built something valuable on my territory. The outcome is inevitable." Lily swallowed her response, recognizing the warning in his tone. This was happening. More frequently. Moments where she stepped beyond the boundaries he had silently established for her role. Each time his reminder was gentle but unmistakable. Her place in his world existed at his pleasure. Later that evening, as they dined on the penthouse terrace, Ethan's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, his expression shifting subtly. "Excuse me," he said, rising from the table. "I need to take this." Lily nodded, watching as he walked to the far side of the terrace, his posture tense. Though she couldn't hear his words, his body language conveyed controlled anger. When he returned, a careful mask of calm had descended over his features. "Problem?" she asked. "Nothing I can't handle," he replied dismissively. "Though I'll need to make a trip to New York tomorrow. You'll come with me." It wasn't a request. Lily had learned that Ethan rarely made requests. He stated expectations and others fulfilled them. "Of course," she said. "I'll reschedule the Henderson Gala." His fingers drummed once against the table, the only outward sign of his irritation. "No need, we'll return in time. The jet will be ready at 6. Lily nodded, adjusting mental calendars. "Should I prepare any documents for the meeting?" "That won't be necessary," he said, his tone closing the subject. "This is a personal matter." Those words, personal matter, had come to signal situations where Ethan operated outside even the aggressive boundaries of his normal business practices. Lily had glimpsed the results of these personal matters in hushed phone calls, in competitors who suddenly faced criminal investigations, in former associates who found themselves abruptly blacklisted across industries. The knowledge sat like a stone in her stomach. She was complicit now, however peripherally. The money that paid for her mother's treatment, her condo, her new life, all of it connected to these personal matters. That night, after Ethan had retired to his private quarters, Lily lingered on the terrace, gazing at the city lights below. From this height, Boston looked like a constellation of possibilities, yet she felt increasingly trapped, her golden cage growing more confining with each passing day. Her phone vibrated with a text from her mother. "Just finished physical therapy. Doctor says I'm making remarkable progress. How did I get so lucky to have you?" Lily's throat tightened. This was the price. Her mother's life, her mother's comfort, her mother's future. What wouldn't she sacrifice for that? A separate notification appeared. An email from Ethan's system, automatically forwarding meeting confirmations that involved travel. The New York meeting was scheduled with someone named Marcus Vega at a nondescript address in Brooklyn. The name wasn't familiar from any of Blackwood's legitimate business connections. Curiosity and unease battled within her. Against her better judgment, Lily opened her tablet and searched for Marcus Vega. The results were sparse but illuminating. A former finance executive who'd faced charges for insider trading 5 years ago, charges mysteriously dropped before trial. Current occupation unknown, the kind of person Ethan would contact for a personal matter that required flying to New York on short notice. Lily closed the browser, heart pounding. She was crossing a line by investigating, yet she couldn't stop herself from wanting to know what web she was entangled in. Knowledge was power, and power was something Ethan had taught her to value above almost everything. The next morning, dressed in a tailored navy suit, Lily accompanied Ethan to his private airfield, where the sleek Blackwood Enterprises jet awaited. As they settled into buttery leather seats, Ethan handed her a slim folder. "Since you're here, you might as well be useful," he said, his tone almost playful. "Review these files on Senator Whitman's upcoming legislation. I need to know where the vulnerabilities lie." Lily accepted the folder, recognizing the distraction for what it was. "Of course." As the jet climbed above the clouds, Lily felt the weight of choices made and boundaries crossed. She had wanted freedom from the limitations of her past, a chance to determine her own destiny. Yet she now lived according to Ethan's schedule, Ethan's expectations, Ethan's world. What kind of freedom was that? She glanced at Ethan, who was reviewing documents on his tablet. He looked up, catching her gaze with an intensity that suggested he could read her thoughts. "Second thoughts, Lily?" he asked softly. "No," she lied, schooling her features into neutral professionalism. "Just thinking about the day ahead." His slow smile told her he didn't believe her, but he chose not to challenge the deception. That was Ethan's way, allowing small rebellions while maintaining ultimate control. He permitted her dignity in minor matters, which made her surrender in major ones feel like choice rather than coercion. "Good," he said, returning to his tablet. "Because I have plans for you, Lily Morgan, plans that extend far beyond what you can currently imagine." The words hung between them, both promise and threat, as the jet carried them toward New York and whatever personal matter awaited. Lily stared out the window at the endless sky, wondering at what point the price of her dreams had become too high to pay. "You've become quite the asset, Lily," Ethan remarked, as they rode in his private elevator to the executive floor of Blackwood Tower. 6 months had passed since that fateful night at the gala, and Lily had become a fixture in Ethan's world, poised, polished, and increasingly privy to the inner workings of his empire. I aim to exceed expectations, she replied with the measured confidence she'd cultivated. Gone was the uncertain South Boston bartender. In her place stood a woman who navigated high-stakes business meetings and social events with practiced grace. Ethan's approval warmed her despite herself. The Henderson merger wouldn't have happened without your insight. You spotted vulnerabilities. I missed. The elevator doors opened directly into the executive suite, all gleaming glass, steel, and power. Charlotte Reed, Ethan's chief operational officer, waited with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. At 45, Charlotte represented everything Lily had once thought unattainable: Harvard Business School, corner office, respect in rooms dominated by men. But something in Charlotte's expression when she looked at Lily suggested a warning rather than welcome. The Tokyo investors are waiting in conference room A, Charlotte said, her gaze fixed on Ethan. And Rebecca Campbell is here. Again. Ethan's expression hardened momentarily before smoothing into practiced neutrality. Send the Tokyo group my apologies. Lily will handle their preliminary questions. I'll join after I deal with Ms. Campbell. Charlotte nodded curtly, her disapproval evident in the rigid line of her shoulders as she turned to leave. Lily had grown accustomed to such reactions from Ethan's inner circle, a mixture of resentment and wariness toward the newcomer who had ascended too quickly. Be careful with Tanaka, Ethan advised as Lily gathered her tablet. He respects directness, but abhors confrontation, cultural nuance. Lily nodded. I've studied his negotiation patterns. I'll manage him. Small smile played at the corners of Ethan's mouth. I know you will. As Lily turned to leave, Ethan caught her wrist. Not forcefully, but with enough pressure to command her full attention. After we're done here, tell Rebecca I'll give her until the end of the week. No extensions. The coldness in his voice reminded Lily of what happened to those who defied Ethan Blackwood. Rebecca Campbell's innovative security tech company had been in Ethan's sights for months, but the brilliant founder had resisted his acquisition attempts with surprising resilience. I'll convey your message, Lily replied neutrally. As she navigated the meeting with the Japanese investors, Lily found her mind divided, one part focused on the complex financial projections before her, another part wondering what was happening with Rebecca Campbell. In the 6 months working closely with Ethan, she had witnessed his negotiation tactics evolve from generous offers to subtle pressure to thinly veiled threats. The pattern was always the same. Ethan identified something he wanted, offered to buy it, and when refused, systematically dismantled obstacles until the target surrendered. People weren't much different from companies in his worldview, assets to be acquired, leveraged or neutralized. 2 hours later, with the Tokyo representatives suitably impressed by Blackwood Enterprises' proposed Asian expansion, Lily exited the conference room to find Rebecca Campbell waiting in the reception area. Even from across the room, Lily could see the woman's reddened eyes and tense posture. Ms. Campbell, Lily approached with professional courtesy, Mr. Blackwood asked me to inform you that you have until Friday to reconsider his offer. Rebecca looked up, her expression shifting from defeat to bitter recognition. You're her, aren't you? His new whatever you are. Lily maintained her composure. I'm Mr. Blackwood's executive assistant. That's what they call it these days? Rebecca laughed hollowly. I've heard about you. The bartender who caught his eye. Now you stand there in Prada, delivering his ultimatums. The accuracy of the assessment stung. Ms. Campbell... Let me give you some advice, Rebecca interrupted, rising to her feet. Though shorter than Lily, she seemed to expand with righteous anger. Whatever he's giving you, the money, the lifestyle, the false sense of power, it's not worth what you're giving up. I'm not giving up anything, Lily replied automatically. Rebecca's eyes narrowed with something between pity and contempt. Aren't you? Look at yourself. Do you even recognize who you've become? Before Lily could respond, the elevator doors opened and Ethan emerged, his expression darkening at the sight of the two women in conversation. Ms. Campbell, he said coldly, I believe our discussion concluded. Rebecca turned to him, chin raised. I built my company from nothing, Blackwood. I won't let you destroy it just to absorb my patents. Your company is imploding as we speak, Ethan replied, his voice lowered. Your lead investors pulled out this morning. By Friday, your board will demand you sell. The only question is whether you'll do so with your reputation intact. Litiua, color drained from Rebecca's face. You manipulated my investors, that's business, Ethan finished for her. Perhaps if you understood that better, you wouldn't be in this position. Rebecca's gaze darted between Ethan and Lily as if searching for humanity in either face. Finding none, she gathered her dignity and walked to the elevator. Friday, Ms. Campbell, Ethan called after her. Don't make this messier than it needs to be. As the elevator doors closed on Rebecca's stricken expression, an uncomfortable silence fell between Lily and Ethan. He turned to her with a raised eyebrow. Trouble? Lily hesitated. She was upset. Naturally, he replied dismissively. People often are when they realize they've lost. The Tokyo meeting? Productive, Lily answered, falling into their usual rhythm. Tanaka wants assurances about the regulatory approvals, but they're otherwise prepared to move forward. Ethan nodded approvingly. Excellent. Join me for dinner tonight, the mayor's fundraiser at the Mandarin. Again, not a request, but a declaration. Lily had grown used to these dictates. When to appear, what to wear, how to behave. Her calendar was no longer her own. Her time belonged to Ethan just as surely as her mother's medical care, and her luxurious condo depended on his continued favor. The blue Valentino, she asked, already knowing his preference for how she should appear at political events. Perfect, he confirmed. My driver will collect you at 7. That evening, as Lily prepared in her Back Bay condo, Rebecca Campbell's words echoed in her mind. Do you even recognize who you've become? The question lingered as she applied makeup with practiced precision, styled her hair into an elegant updo, and slipped into the designer dress that cost more than she'd once earned in 3 months. The woman in the mirror was beautiful, polished, powerful, and a stranger. Somewhere between that first gala and today, Lily Morgan of South Boston had disappeared, replaced by this curated version of herself that existed to complement Ethan Blackwood's world. Her phone chimed with a text from Ethan. Car downstairs. Bring the Cartier earrings. Lily slipped the diamond earrings on, another gift from Ethan delivered after she'd successfully managed a difficult client on his behalf. Each gift came after she crossed another line, accepted another compromise, allowed another boundary to blur. The pattern was clear, even if she had been reluctant to acknowledge it. At the fundraiser, Lily performed her role flawlessly, charming. The mayor, deflecting questions about Blackwood Enterprises' controversial development projects, ensuring Ethan's scotch glass never emptied. She had become an extension of him, anticipating his needs before he expressed them. You're exceptionally useful tonight, Ethan murmured as they circulated through the crowd, his hand resting possessively on the small of her back. The Thompson Group is here, Lily replied quietly. 3rd table from the left. Their CEO has been watching you since we arrived. Ethan's lips curved into a predatory smile. Well spotted. They've been resistant to our partnership proposal. Perhaps a personal touch is needed. As he guided her toward the Thompson table, Lily caught sight of Charlotte Reed watching them from across the room, her expression unreadable. When their eyes met, Charlotte inclined her head slightly, a gesture that seemed to convey a message Lily couldn't quite decipher. Later, as Ethan engaged the Thompson executives in conversation, Charlotte appeared at Lily's side. He's grooming you, Charlotte said without preamble, her voice low enough that only Lily could hear. Lily maintained her pleasant expression for the benefit of onlookers. I'm sorry. Don't be naive, Charlotte replied. It doesn't suit you. You're being shaped into something specific. I've seen it before. And what would that be? Lily asked, unsettled by the woman's intensity. Charlotte's gaze flicked to Ethan, then back to Lily. His weapon, his shield, his perfectly calibrated tool. She sipped her champagne. There was someone before you, Vanessa. She was brilliant, ambitious, malleable. Sound familiar? A chill ran through Lily, despite the crowded room's warmth. What happened to her? She outlived her usefulness, Charlotte said simply, when she started thinking for herself instead of serving his interests. She placed her empty glass on a passing tray. You're smarter than she was. I can see it. But that might make your fall more spectacular. Before Lily could respond, Charlotte walked away, leaving her with questions she wasn't sure she wanted answered. Across the room, Ethan caught her eye and beckoned. Like a faithful companion, Lily went to him even as doubt bloomed in her chest. The ride back to her condo was quiet, Ethan absorbed in messages on his phone. When the car stopped outside her building, he looked up. The Campbell situation will resolve itself by Friday, he said. I've insured it. Lily nodded, not trusting herself to speak. You seemed distracted tonight, Ethan observed, his gaze penetrating. Something on your mind? For a moment, Lily considered asking about Vanessa, about the pattern Charlotte had hinted at. Instead, she smiled. Just tired. It's been a long day. Ethan studied her for a moment longer before nodding. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we finalize the Tokyo deal. As Lily entered her empty condo, she kicked off her designer heels and moved to the window, looking out at the Boston skyline. From here, she could see the Blackwood Tower dominating the cityscape, a gleaming monument to Ethan's power and ambition. She thought of Rebecca Campbell, fighting to save her company from Ethan's systematic dismantling. She thought of Charlotte's warning and the mysterious Vanessa, who had outlived her usefulness. She thought of her own transformation from struggling bartender to polished executive assistant, and the increasing compromises that role required. The realization crystallized slowly. She had escaped one prison only to enter another, more gilded. 1. The bars were made of luxury and dependency, but they confined her nonetheless. In gaining financial freedom, she had surrendered something far more precious, her autonomy, her morality, perhaps even her identity. Lily Morgan of South Boston wouldn't recognize who she had become. The question now was whether that woman still existed somewhere beneath the carefully constructed facade, and whether she had the courage to reclaim herself before she disappeared completely. A year into her employment with Ethan Blackwood, Lily sat alone in her office adjacent to his, staring at the email on her screen. Rebecca Campbell's tech company had been acquired by Blackwood Enterprises 6 months ago after a battle that left the once confident founder financially and emotionally drained. Now Rebecca was announcing her new venture, a small consulting firm operating far from Ethan's sphere of influence. The attached photo showed Rebecca with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. She looked older, thinner, diminished, another casualty of Ethan's relentless ambition. Still thinking about Rebecca, Charlotte Reed's voice came from the doorway. In recent months, an uneasy alliance had formed between the two women. Charlotte had become something of a guide, not quite a friend, but a truth-teller in a world of carefully constructed illusions. Lily minimized the email, just clearing my inbox. Charlotte closed the door and took a seat across from Lily's desk. She was smart to retreat. Most of them don't recognize when they're beaten until it's too late. Is that supposed to be comforting? Lily asked, her tone sharper than intended. Charlotte's lips curved in a humorless smile. No, just reality. Speaking of which, have you seen the Larson proposal? Lily nodded. Jackson Larson owned a chain of boutique hotels that occupied prime real estate in several major cities, assets Ethan had recently set his sights on. Ethan wants to acquire them at 30% below market value, Lily said. It's aggressive, even for him. Aggressive? Charlotte raised an eyebrow. It's highway robbery. Larson built that company from nothing over 30 years. His hotels have some of the highest customer satisfaction ratings in the industry. Then why sell at all? Lily asked, though she suspected the answer. Charlotte's expression darkened. Because Ethan has been systematically pressuring Larson's lenders. 3 of his properties suddenly faced regulatory issues last month. His oldest daughter was abruptly rejected from 3 Ivy League universities where she had legacy status. His son's startup mysteriously lost its funding. Lily felt the familiar twist of discomfort in her stomach. How do you know all this? Because I've been with Ethan for 15 years, Charlotte replied evenly. I know how he operates. The question is, how much longer are you going to pretend you don't? Before Lily could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. My office. Now. Duty calls, Charlotte said, rising from her chair. She paused at the door. Just remember, Lily, the higher he elevates you, the farther you have to fall, and everyone falls eventually. Ethan was on a call when Lily entered his office, pacing behind his desk with the restless energy that always accompanied his most ambitious schemes. He gestured for her to sit, his voice sharp as he addressed someone on the line. I don't care about the legal complications, Davis. I care about results. Make it happen. He ended the call with a forceful tap of his finger, then turned his attention to Lily. The Larson deal is stalling, he said without preamble. Jackson is becoming sentimental about his legacy. Lily met his gaze steadily. The offer is significantly below market value. Perhaps if... The offer is exactly what the company is. Worth once its vulnerabilities are factored in, Ethan interrupted, his tone brooking no argument, and those vulnerabilities will become increasingly apparent in the coming weeks. The implied threat hung in the air between them. Lily had witnessed this pattern enough times to understand what was coming, the gradual dismantling of Jackson. Larson's life and business until surrender became his only option. I have a different approach to suggest, Lily said carefully. Ethan's eyebrows rose slightly, a mixture of surprise and amusement crossing his features. Do you now? Larson's primary concern is his legacy. His children don't want to take over the business, but he wants the Larson name to continue in the hospitality industry. She met his gaze directly. We could offer to maintain the Larson brand as a premium line within Blackwood Hospitality, give him a ceremonial board position, let him believe his legacy will continue. Ethan studied her, his expression unreadable. An interesting psychological approach, offering the illusion of continuity rather than outright conquest. It would be more efficient than breaking him, Lily pointed out pragmatically, and potentially more profitable. The Larson brand has significant goodwill in the market. A slow smile spread across Ethan's face. You're learning, Lily, using sentimentality as leverage rather than trying to crush it directly. He moved closer, perching on the edge of his desk near her chair. I appreciate the strategic thinking, but make no mistake. Once Larson signs, the company is mine to do with as I please. Of course, Lily agreed, ignoring the twist of discomfort in her stomach. I'm simply suggesting the most efficient path to acquisition. Ethan reached out, his fingers brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture that crossed the professional boundaries he frequently blurred. You've become quite the asset, Lily Morgan. I knew you had potential that first night, but you've exceeded even my expectations. Lily remained still under his touch, years of practice allowing her to mask her discomfort. Thank you. Arrange a dinner with Larson, Ethan continued, withdrawing his hand. Somewhere intimate, not overly formal. His favorite restaurant, perhaps. I want him comfortable when we present this revised approach. I'll take care of it, Lily replied, rising from her chair. And Lily, Ethan called as she reached the door. Wear the red Armani. Larson appreciates beautiful things. It might soften him further. The casual objectification was delivered as a business strategy, another tool in Ethan's arsenal of manipulation. Once such comments had shocked her. Now they were simply part of the job, the ever-present reminder that in Ethan's world, everything and everyone was a potential asset to be leveraged. That evening, alone in her condo, Lily poured herself a glass of wine and opened her laptop. The Larson Hotel's website showcased properties that embodied genuine hospitality, places built with care rather than corporate efficiency. Family photos revealed Jackson Larson as a man with a weathered face and kind eyes, standing proudly with his staff at hotel openings across the decades. A man who had built something authentic, soon to be devoured by Ethan's empire of acquisition. Lily's phone rang. Her mother calling from the assisted living facility where she now resided. Her health improved, but still requiring regular care. How's my corporate superstar? Her mother asked, her voice warm with pride. Busy as always, Lily replied, forcing cheerfulness into her tone. How was physical therapy today? As her mother chatted about her progress, Lily gazed out at the Boston skyline, the Blackwood Tower illuminated against the night sky. Her mother believed Lily worked for a brilliant, demanding businessman, a narrative far removed from the complex reality of Ethan Blackwood's methods and Lily's role in facilitating them. You sound tired, honey, her mother observed. Just a long day, Lily assured her. You work too hard. Is he treating you well, at least? The question hung in the air, layered with unintended irony. In material terms, Ethan treated Lily exceptionally well. The luxury condo, designer wardrobe, six-figure salary, her mother's premium medical care. In human terms, he was systematically reshaping her into his ideal lieutenant, eroding her boundaries and moral compass with each passing month. He values my work, Lily answered carefully. After ending the call, she opened a drawer in her desk and pulled out a small notebook, one of the few items she'd brought from her old apartment. Inside were dreams she'd once recorded, travel aspirations, career goals, hopes for making a difference. The handwriting belonged to a different Lily Morgan, one who believed in possibilities beyond survival, who hadn't yet learned to calculate the price of everything and everyone. The following week, Lily sat beside Ethan in an exclusive Boston restaurant as he charmed Jackson Larson with practiced ease. Dressed in the requested red Armani, she observed the interplay between the men, one a builder who'd created with passion, the other a conqueror who acquired with precision. Your legacy matters to me, Jackson, Ethan was saying, his sincerity so perfect it could almost be mistaken for genuine. The Larson name represents quality in the industry. I want to preserve that, not erase it. Jackson, a man in his mid-60s with silver hair and tired eyes, seemed to want to believe him. My father started with one small hotel in Providence. Taught me everything about hospitality. The idea of the name disappearing. It won't, Ethan assured him. The Larson collection will become the premium brand within Blackwood hospitality. Your vision will continue. Lily maintained her professional smile while silently cataloguing the lies. She'd seen the internal memos, plans to absorb the properties into standardized Blackwood hotels, eliminating the inefficiencies that made Larson properties unique. And my employees, Jackson asked. Some of them have been with me for decades. Valued. Team members will always have a place, Ethan replied smoothly, avoiding specific commitments. Lily felt Jackson's gaze shift to her, searching for confirmation or contradiction. Ms. Morgan, you've been quiet. What's your perspective on the acquisition? The question caught her off guard. Most people in negotiations with Ethan addressed only him, treating her as an accessory rather than a participant. I believe in preserving what makes businesses special, she answered carefully, aware of Ethan's scrutiny. The Larson reputation for personal service is unmatched in the industry. Jackson studied her, perhaps sensing the careful phrasing. And you believe Blackwood Enterprises shares that philosophy? A moment of choice crystallized. Lily could feel Ethan's expectation pressing against her, the rehearsed answer, the pleasant lie, the role she had played for a year. Mr. Blackwood has a vision for expansion that will bring the Larson experience to more travelers, she replied diplomatically. The rest of the dinner proceeded according to Ethan's carefully orchestrated plan. Jackson Larson, worn down by months of pressure and seduced by promises of legacy preservation, agreed to consider the revised offer. As they parted outside the restaurant, the older man clasped Lily's hand. You remind me of my daughter, he said quietly. Smart, observant, she always tells me when I'm making a mistake. His eyes held a question he didn't voice. Your legacy is important, Lily replied, the words sticking in her throat. In the car afterward, Ethan was triumphant. He'll sign within the week. Your approach was inspired, Lily. Thank you, she murmured, staring out the window as Boston's streets blurred past. This calls for a celebration, Ethan continued. The Larson acquisition completes our hospitality division's East Coast footprint. Once we announce, our stock will surge. He touched her knee. I've had something made for you, a token of appreciation for your contribution to this deal. His penthouse, Ethan presented her with a small velvet box. Inside lay a breathtaking emerald necklace, the center stone surrounded by diamonds. "Green suits you," he said, removing the necklace from its box. "Turn around." Lily complied automatically, lifting her hair as he fastened the clasp around her neck. The emerald rested heavily against her skin, beautiful and cold. "Perfect," Ethan murmured, his hands lingering on her shoulders. "You've become indispensable to me, Lily. I want you to know that." She met his gaze in the mirror. "Thank you, Ethan." Later that night, after returning to her condo, Lily stood before her bathroom mirror and studied her reflection. The woman who stared back wore a $50,000 emerald necklace and a designer dress, her makeup still flawless after hours of performing her role. Behind the polished exterior, something was fracturing, a slow-building pressure reaching its breaking point. Charlotte's words echoed in her mind. "The higher he elevates you, the farther you have to fall." Vanessa, whoever she had been, had fallen when she began thinking for herself. Rebecca Campbell had been systematically destroyed for defying Ethan's will. Jackson Larson was surrendering his life's work, believing lies Lily had helped craft. And Lily herself? She had become what Ethan needed, his perfect lieutenant, his charming companion, his weapon elegantly deployed. She had traded one form of powerlessness for another, more insidious version, decorated with luxury and justified by necessity. The emerald gleamed against her skin, its weight suddenly suffocating. With trembling fingers, Lily unfastened the clasp and placed the necklace on the counter. Without its adornment, she looked both more vulnerable and more herself, a woman at a crossroads, recognizing at last the true cost of the bargain she had made. 3 days after the dinner with Jackson Larson, Lily sat in a quiet corner of a cafe in Cambridge, far from the financial district where Blackwood Tower dominated the skyline. Across from her, Charlotte Reed nursed a cup of black coffee, her usual corporate armor replaced by casual weekend attire. "He's planning to announce the Larson acquisition at the charity gala next week," Charlotte said, her voice low despite the ambient noise of the cafe. "Full press coverage, major investors attending. It's meant to be his crowning achievement in the hospitality sector." Lily nodded, turning her own cup between her palms. "And after the announcement?" "Immediate. Integration. The Larson name stays for 6 months, then phases out completely. 3 properties close for renovation and reopen as standard Blackwood hotels. The rest follow within 18 months. Charlotte's expression remained neutral, but something in her eyes suggested she'd seen this pattern too many times before. 80% of current staff will be deemed redundant. The information confirmed what Lily had already suspected, but hadn't been able to verify. Ethan had deliberately kept her away from the operational plans for the Larson integration, ensuring her performance with Jackson remained convincing. "Why are you telling me this?" Lily asked, studying the woman who had been both mentor and warning system over the past year. Charlotte was silent for a moment, weighing her words. "Because 15 years ago I was you, the promising protégé, the perfect lieutenant. I believed I could maintain my integrity while serving Ethan's ambitions." A bitter smile touched her lips. "I was wrong. What changed?" "I reached my breaking point," Charlotte replied simply. "Everyone who survives in Ethan's orbit eventually does. The question is, what you do afterward. I chose to stay, to compartmentalize, to focus on the business rather than the methods." She met Lily's gaze directly. "I'm not sure it was the right choice." The admission hung between them, layered with years of compromise and resignation. Lily considered the woman before her, brilliant, successful by any conventional measure, yet something vital had been sacrificed along the way. "And Vanessa?" Lily asked, finally voicing the question that had lingered since their conversation at the mayor's fundraiser. "What was her breaking point?" Charlotte's expression tightened. "Vanessa Ellis was Ethan's executive assistant before you. Smart, ambitious, from a background not unlike yours. He shaped her, promoted her, trusted her with increasingly sensitive operations. What happened to her?" "She developed a conscience at an inconvenient time," Charlotte said. "A deal similar to Larson's, but the target was a family-owned manufacturing company in western Massachusetts. When she learned the owner was being pressured through his chronically ill wife's medical coverage, something snapped. She warned him, tried to help him fight back. Lily felt a chill despite the cafe's warmth. And Ethan discovered her betrayal. Within a week, she lost everything. Her position, her apartment, her reputation. Last I heard, she was waiting tables in New Hampshire, unhirable in any corporate setting after the non-disclosure violations Ethan's legal team manufactured against her. The parallels were too clear to ignore. Lily, too, had come from nothing. Her mother's medical care, her financial security, her entire constructed life depended on Ethan's continued favor. "Why did you stay?" Lily asked quietly. After seeing what happened to her. Charlotte's gaze drifted to the window, where Cambridge students passed by, lives still unfolding with possibility. Fear at first, then inertia, eventually a kind of desperate rationalization that the good outweighed the bad. She looked back at Lily. But the scales never balance, not really. You just become better at lying to yourself. Lily thought of Jackson Larson's tired eyes, of Rebecca Campbell's diminished presence, of all the others who had stood in Ethan's path only to be systematically dismantled. She thought of her own transformation, the skills acquired, the boundaries erased, the gradual reshaping of her moral framework to accommodate Ethan's methods. "I can't do this anymore," she said finally, the words both terrifying and liberating. Charlotte nodded, unsurprised. "I figured as much. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "I don't know yet," Lily admitted, "but I know I can't continue being his weapon." "Be careful, Lily," Charlotte warned. "Ethan doesn't tolerate betrayal. If you're going to break free, you need leverage. Protection." Later that night, in the solitude of her condo, Lily removed the emerald necklace from its velvet box and placed it on her coffee table, its facets catching the dim light. For over a year, she had accepted Ethan's gifts as compensation for her compliance. Designer clothes, luxury accessories, this very apartment. Each item represented a compromise, a step further away from the woman she had once been. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. "Breakfast meeting tomorrow, 7 a.m. My place. We'll discuss your role at the gala announcement." Lily stared at the message, remembering how once such a summons would have filled her with a complex mixture of pride and anxiety, the satisfaction of being essential to his plans, coupled with the stress of meeting his exacting standards. Now she felt only a hollow recognition of the power dynamics at play. She didn't reply immediately, instead opening her laptop and navigating to secure cloud storage she'd established months ago, a precautionary measure taken after witnessing what happened to those who crossed Ethan. Inside were carefully organized folders containing evidence of questionable business practices she'd been privy to. Emails discussing regulatory manipulation, recordings of conversations where pressure tactics were planned, financial documents showing patterns of strategic devaluation before acquisitions. None of it was explicitly illegal, but collectively, it painted a damning picture of Ethan Blackwood's methods, the systematic application of pressure, the orchestrated coincidences that befell his targets, the web of influence he wielded to break those who resisted him. Lily's finger hovered over the folder labeled Larson Acquisition. Inside was every communication regarding the systematic dismantling of Jackson Larson's resistance, the calls to banking contacts, the planted stories questioning the financial stability of his hotels, the arranged regulatory issues at key properties. Was she really considering using this information against Ethan, the man who had lifted her from obscurity, who had provided for her mother's medical care, who had shown her a world of possibility she'd never imagined accessible, the man who had also methodically eroded her autonomy, leveraged her gratitude into compliance, and transformed her into an accessory to his ruthless ambitions? Her phone buzzed again. "Lily, confirm tomorrow's meeting." With sudden clarity, Lily knew she couldn't attend another strategy session, couldn't participate in another calculated destruction, couldn't continue being the polished face of Ethan's intimidation machine, but neither could she simply walk away. Ethan wouldn't allow it, not with what she knew, not with her intimate understanding of his methods. She needed a plan. "Confirmed," 7 a.m., she texted back, buying herself time. The next morning, dressed in a sleek navy suit that Ethan had once complimented for its authoritative appearance, Lily arrived at his Beacon Hill penthouse. The doorman greeted her by name, accustomed to her regular presence. In the private elevator to the penthouse, she took a deep breath, steadying herself for what lay ahead. Ethan was at his usual place by the windows, Boston spread before him, like a kingdom under survey. He turned as she entered, his expression pleased. "Right on time, as always," he said, gesturing to the breakfast laid out on the dining table. "I've been thinking about your role at the announcement gala. I want you front and center for this one." Lily set her bag down, removing a slim folder. "Before we discuss that, there's something I need to bring to your attention." Ethan raised an eyebrow, moving to the table. "A problem with the Larson paperwork?" "Not exactly." Lily placed the folder before him, maintaining a professional demeanor, despite her racing heart. "This contains information about my resignation, effective immediately." The words hung in the air between them. Ethan's expression shifted from surprise to calculation to something colder. "Resignation," he repeated, not touching the folder. "This is unexpected and poorly timed, given next week's announcement." "Nevertheless, it's necessary," Lily replied evenly. Ethan studied her, his analytical mind already working through scenarios, evaluating her motives and potential threats. "May I ask what prompted this sudden decision? Another offer, perhaps?" "No other offer," Lily said. "I simply can't continue in this role." A dangerous smile curved Ethan's lips. "Can't or won't?" He moved closer, his presence deliberately intimidating. "After everything I've done for you, elevating you from bartender to executive, providing for your mother's care, giving you a life most people only dream of, you choose now to develop scruples." "I'm grateful for the opportunities," Lily said carefully, "but I can't participate in what's happening to Jackson Larson, or what happened to Rebecca Campbell, or all the others." Ethan's expression hardened. "You knew exactly what you were signing up for. Don't pretend moral outrage now when it's convenient." "Perhaps I didn't," Lily countered, "or perhaps I convinced myself the ends justified the means. Either way, I'm done." "It's not that simple, Lily," Ethan said, his voice lowering. "You've been privy to confidential information, sensitive negotiations. Your contract has very clear non-disclosure provisions, provisions with serious financial penalties." Here it was, the threat, the reminder of her vulnerability. Lily had anticipated this exact response. "I'm aware of my contractual obligations," she replied calmly. "I have no intention of disclosing confidential information unless forced to protect myself." Ethan went still, recognizing the implicit counterattack. "Explain yourself." Lily met his gaze directly. "For the past year, I've documented every instance where you've used methods that might interest regulatory authorities, journalists, or competitors. Everything from the manufactured banking crisis that forced Westlake Technologies to sell, to the coincidental IRS audit that befell Senator Harris after he opposed your waterfront development project." "You're bluffing," Ethan said, but uncertainty flickered in his eyes. "The evidence is secured and distributed," Lily continued. "If anything happens to me, my mother, my finances, or my professional reputation, it will be released automatically to multiple recipients." The atmosphere in the penthouse shifted, tension charging the air between them. This was no longer employer and assistant, mentor and protégé. This was adversary facing adversary, one with power and resources, the other with dangerous knowledge. "You think you can threaten me?" Ethan's voice was dangerously soft. "I made you, Lily Morgan. I can unmake you just as easily." "You didn't make me," Lily replied, finding strength in the truth. "You found someone desperate and ambitious, and you shaped her into what you needed. But that person isn't who I am anymore." "And who are you?" Ethan asked mockingly. "The righteous whistleblower? The champion of business ethics? Please, you've benefited from every decision you now claim to find objectionable." "You're right," Lily acknowledged, surprising him. I've been complicit. I've watched you destroy people's lives and called it business. I've helped craft the narratives that justified it. That stops today." Ethan studied her with cold assessment. "What do you want? Money? A different position in the company?" "I want out," Lily said simply. "Complete separation. My contract terminated with the agreed severance, a mutual non-disparagement agreement, and your guarantee that neither I nor my mother will experience any coincidental difficulties afterward." "And in return?" "The evidence remains secured, but unreleased. I move on with my life, you continue with yours." Lily gestured to the folder on the table. "The terms are outlined there." Ethan opened the folder, scanning the documents inside. His face revealed nothing as he processed the carefully crafted agreement, one that offered him a clean break, while protecting Lily from retaliation. "You've thought this through," he said finally, closing the folder. "I learn from the best," Lily replied without irony. A tense silence filled the room as Ethan calculated his options. He could fight, certainly, deploy his considerable resources against her. But Lily had been inside his operation for a year, had seen his methods up. Close had proof that could damage him even if it didn't destroy him completely. "What happens with Larson?" he asked suddenly. "Will you warn him like Vanessa tried to warn her target?" So Charlotte had been right about Vanessa. "No," Lily answered honestly. "I won't interfere, but I won't help you destroy him either." Ethan's laugh held no humor. "How very ethical of you, maintaining your moral high ground while still allowing the inevitable to occur." The observation stung because it contained truth. By walking away without warning Jackson Larson, was she really any better than before? "I can't save everyone from you, Ethan," Lily admitted, "but I can stop being your weapon." Ethan moved to the window, Boston spread before him in morning light. For a moment he was silent, calculating probabilities, assessing risks, determining whether the cost of fighting her outweighed the simplicity of letting her go. "You know," he said finally, "of all the people I've cultivated over the years, you had the most potential, the perfect combination of intelligence, ambition, and adaptability." He turned back to her. "I'm almost impressed by this move." Lily remained silent, recognizing the backhanded compliment for what it was, an acknowledgement that she had outmaneuvered him, however temporarily. "I'll have legal review your terms," Ethan said, picking up the folder. "Assuming they're reasonable, we'll finalize the separation by the end of the week." Relief flooded through Lily, though she maintained her composed exterior. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," Ethan warned. "Remember that this arrangement depends on your continued discretion. Forever." "I understand." He moved closer, his expression unreadable. "Do you know what fascinates me about this moment, Lily? You're using my own tactics against me. Leverage, strategic timing, calculated risk. You've become more like me than you're willing to admit." The observation unsettled her, but Lily refused to show it. "Perhaps I've learned your methods. That doesn't mean I share your values." "We'll see," Ethan replied, a knowing smile playing at his lips. "Power changes people, Lily, so does the absence of it. When you're back in the real world, without the protection of my name and resources, we'll see how long those principled values last." "I guess we will," Lily said, picking up her bag. She removed the emerald necklace from a side pocket and placed it on the table. "This belongs to you." Ethan glanced at the necklace dismissively. "Keep it. Consider it a parting gift, a reminder of what you're walking away from." "No, thank you," Lily replied firmly. "I don't need reminders." As she turned to leave, Ethan called after her. "One last thing, Lily." She paused at the door, looking back. "When you find yourself missing this life, the influence, the access, the ability to make things happen, remember that my door remains open. People like us understand each other in ways others never will." The offer held both threat and seduction, a reminder of the intoxicating power she was relinquishing. For a moment, doubt flickered. Could she really walk away from everything she'd gained, return to a life of limitation and struggle? "Goodbye." "Ethan," she said simply and closed the door behind her. 3 months later, Lily sat on a bench overlooking Boston Harbor, watching sailboats glide across the water. She wore jeans and a simple blouse, a far cry from the designer wardrobe that had once been her daily armor. Beside her sat Rebecca Campbell, their unlikely friendship forged in the aftermath of Lily's departure from Blackwood Enterprises. "The incubator approved your application," Rebecca said, passing Lily a folder containing the official acceptance. "They were impressed by the business plan. Community-focused financial education isn't exactly sexy tech, but they see the potential impact." Lily smiled, a genuine expression that had become more frequent since her exit from Ethan's world. "Thank you for the recommendation. I couldn't have gotten through the door without it." "Consider it karma," Rebecca replied. "Your warning about what happened to my data security patents gave me time to protect my new venture. I owed you." After leaving Blackwood Enterprises, Lily had used her severance to secure modest housing and establish a small consulting practice while developing her true passion project: financial literacy programs for underserved communities like the South Boston neighborhood where she'd grown up. The work paid far less than her position with Ethan, but it came without the weight of compromise that had grown increasingly unbearable. Her mother's medical care continued under the provisions Lily had negotiated in her separation agreement. Ethan, true to his word, had maintained his distance, though Lily sometimes felt his shadow across Boston's financial district, a reminder of the power she had challenged and the life she had rejected. "Have you heard the latest about Blackwood?" Rebecca asked, checking her phone. The Larson acquisition went through, but apparently several key properties were carved out beforehand. Jackson Larson managed to save his flagship hotels after all. Lily raised an eyebrow. "Really? That's surprising." "Rumor has it that someone tipped him off about Blackwood's integration plans. Gave him time to secure separate financing for the properties with the most sentimental value." Rebecca gave Lily a sidelong glance. "Wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" Lily's expression remained neutral. "I maintained the terms of my separation agreement. Complete non-interference." "Of course," Rebecca replied with a knowing smile, "just like Charlotte Reed maintained complete confidentiality when she resigned last month, after 15 years of loyal service." The news about Charlotte was genuinely surprising. "Charlotte left." Rebecca nodded. "Joined an ethical investment firm in Chicago. Quite the statement walking away from her COO position." She paused. "Interesting timing, right after the modified Larson deal closed." Lily gazed out at the harbor, considering the ripple effects of choices made and unmade. She hadn't warned Jackson Larson directly, that would have violated her agreement with Ethan, but she had left certain files accessible to Charlotte, knowing the woman had her own moral calculations to make. "Sometimes people surprise you," Lily said finally. "Even themselves." As the sun began to set, casting golden light across the water, Lily thought about Ethan's parting words. "People like us understand each other in ways others never will." He had been right about one thing. She had learned his methods, understood his perspective. The difference was in how she chose to apply that knowledge. Ethan used power to control, to accumulate, to bend others to his will. Lily had discovered another path, using what she'd learned to protect, to build, to create space for choices rather than eliminating them. The true power, she'd realized, wasn't in wealth or influence or strategic leverage. It was in the freedom to choose who you became, regardless of circumstances. It was in recognizing the price of dreams and deciding, consciously, which prices were worth paying. Somewhere across the city, in his tower of glass and steel, Ethan Blackwood continued building his empire, acquiring, expanding, consuming. But here, by the water's edge, Lily Morgan was building something different, something smaller perhaps, but entirely her own. She had escaped the golden cage, not by finding a more powerful protector, but by dismantling it from within, using the very skills. Her captor had taught her to secure her freedom. The woman who had once been shaped into Ethan's perfect weapon had reclaimed herself, remade herself according to her own design. And in that transformation lay a victory more profound than any corporate acquisition. Film de Historia. Dear listeners, We hope Lily Morgan's journey from South Boston bartender to executive assistant, and finally to a woman who reclaimed her own destiny, has moved and inspired you. Her battle against the powerful Ethan Blackwood reminds us that true freedom comes not from wealth or status, but from the courage to make difficult choices aligned with our authentic selves. For more captivating stories exploring the complex dynamics of power, ambition, and redemption, we've prepared a special playlist of narratives just as emotionally engaging as Lily's struggle. Find it by clicking the link to your left. If you connected with Lily's transformation, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Every day we bring you unique stories that delve into life's complexities and the human spirit's resilience. Don't miss our upcoming content that will take you on equally compelling journeys. We'd love to hear your thoughts on Lily's choices. Would you have made the same decisions? What price would you be willing to pay for your dreams? Share your reflections in the comments section below. Until our next story, remember that the most valuable freedom is the power to choose who you become.